Welcome to the Remember Your Nature podcast. My name is Faith, and before we get into the discussion and analysis and sharing, I want to share a dream that I have, a vision. And this one is a vision of right relationship with one another as human beings, feeling safe with one another to relate consciously and to have layers in relating, to remember as we once were as a tribal community, remembering the different kinds of relationships that we can have with one another, and kind of utilizing the family unit and the family tree as a model for that. So remembering that even if we are not blood, you can be my brother or my sister, you can be my aunt and my uncle. I can have grandfather and grandmother figures, other mother and fatherly figures. And we all have a specific kind of relationship with each and every one of us. And we know how to respectfully operate from those relational models, and we all feel so fulfilled and nourished because we have so many different connections in our lives that give us such unique value. And I also have a vision for men and women, which of course I know that man and woman and the gender expression and experience is a spectrum, but more speaking about the masculine and feminine energies, in that we are deeply reverent to both. We see the necessity and the beauty and the value of both. And I envision a remembrance of deep reverence of the feminine specifically, of the sacred, of the darkness, of the spirit, and a remembrance of right relationship with the energy of nature and the earth, to recognize the feminine principle within creation and to want to protect her fiercely with so much devotion, to take all action out of service to protect the spiritual aspect, the beauty of creation, and the beauty that lives within each and every one of us, and the beauty of nature. So for context, that's my vision that I'm operating out of today. And what I have to say today is in support to this vision. So this is my intention: harmony and right relationship. And I was eating my breakfast today and had an idea about speaking about this subject because it feels very important and pertinent. And I've been considering how in my life now I feel very secure in my relationship with men and my ability to relate with men. And this is because I've been bringing a lot of conscious awareness to my own masculine energy. And I have been healing a lot around my own inner masculine and in my relationship with my father, but also in general, the father and the masculine principle. And I've gained more nuanced understanding about the masculine and feminine experience, with the desire to, as a woman, as a biological female, but also someone who is a core feminine being who is very embodied in her feminine energy. How do I remain in this feminine energy and be in right relationship with men and the masculine in a way that's honoring and respectful, and also attract male relationships that are inherently from the get-go, off the bat, built off the foundation of reverence and respect. And how do I embody myself to where I only allow what I feel is respectful and what I really desire, and I rescind my energy easily around energy that feels that does not feel honoring or respectful. And so to begin the conversation, I just feel like, especially in the conditioned world, um, in the matrix, in the worlds, when we're talking about having a personality and having a body and having programming and messaging around who we are and what we should believe, there seems to be a lot of confusion between men and women. And again, gender, spectrum, understand that nuance. But for this conversation, we're just going to keep it to men and women, masculine and feminine. There seems to be a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty and a lot of delusion. And especially when this has to do with relating and creating relationships. I feel that as a culture, it seems that there's a consciousness that kind of makes us believe that if there's a man plus a woman, that has to equal romantic energy. Now, I'm not saying that biologically, there isn't attraction and that doesn't exist. But I feel that the issue arises is that when we as man and woman look at one another and we immediately are attaching these romantic feelings and this consciousness that is this person going to be my partner, we immediately start to objectify them. We immediately put them into labels. I mean, we could look at another person who is of the opposite gender and have all these ideas about them, and they could not even like my sexual orientation, and or like vice versa. And yeah, it feels that we start operating immediately out of delusion when and not giving ourselves the time and the space to like really get to know the human in front of us. And so therefore I feel that honestly most relationships that exist in the world, and just my belief and my perspective, are really based on need for validation, need to be safe, without maybe even knowing or really choosing the human being that they're with, but more loving and being in relationship with the idea that's based off the programming and conditioning that we have been given about what it means to be man and woman. And so the issue arises when we're not seeing one another, we're instantly objectifying one another. And then also I feel like we've forgotten this ability for nuance and this space for nuance and discernment and distinction in relationship, especially with men and women. As I was saying before, we've kind of forgotten that there are different ways we can relate to one another. As brother and sister, as father and motherly figures, aunt and uncle figures, grandma and grandpa figures. And I feel like we've really forgotten how to relate to one another as humans and individuals first, and not lead from a place of emotional programming and conditioned expectation for one another. And I also feel like generally there's just this sense of a lot of fear. And I will say that being a woman and kind of speaking about women, fear of men is real. And I believe that it is a natural consequence of patriarchy and oppressive systems that have affected our consciousness for centuries. It's really real and true that for centuries our mothers and our grandmothers have been exploited and subjugated. And They were essentially surviving for generations by completely abandoning themselves, silencing themselves, and making themselves desirable for the masculine. So, in our consciousness, deeply ingrained, I believe there is, as women, a fear of the masculine, and there is this natural, conditioned response of fawning and people pleasing towards men because this is our conditioning, this is our background. I mean, we didn't have power for like a really long time. And in my own life, this is quite true for me because it is only until recently, I feel, as I've been really deep diving into my own relationship with my inner masculine and learning from relationships with men and learning through my patterns and my behaviors and making a lot of quote unquote mistakes or more witnessing my unconscious behaviors around men and the masculine. And this sense of fawning and people pleasing had been super pertinent in my own life, and I felt that largely in my need to prove and in my need to feel valuable and to feel secure in the world, that I needed to be seen as desirable and beautiful and to be attractive. And also witnessing this consciousness of just objectifying men and seeing men that, I might have a curiosity about or I might be attracted to. And and then kind of starting to have like emotional attachment or immediately like measuring them to whether they'll be a good partner or not, and then not really like just chilling out on that and seeing them as just human beings and just being interested in who they are as people, and also keeping my connection and awareness to my intuition and my discernment in check and being very present with that and being very aware of witnessing their behavior and what they say and how they say it and how they walk in the world. And to even ask myself, is this a person who feels respectful and who I would, just choose to have in my life because of like what kind of human that they are. That discernment, it felt that when I disconnected from that presence and more started to fall into conditioned emotional programming and expectation because they're just simply a man and there might be a opportunity for intimate connection and romantic relating, that so much of my critical thinking and connection to my intuition would kind of just go out the window because those rose-colored glasses would go on, which puts me in a really vulnerable position and also sets me up for maybe wasting so much of my life force energy on something that I actually don't really truly desire. And on the other hand, I've definitely experienced having just a fear of men in the world because they're a man and I'm a young woman. And I don't think that this is wrong. I don't think that this is bad. I think that this is a smart and strategic move because as a young woman in the world, I do find myself vulnerable and there are people that I need to stay away from and that have bad intentions. So I'm not saying that keeping my guard up isn't a bad thing, but more when I feel that I'm in a safe environment, say in like, a conscious community or in a place that's kind of built around the values that I really believe in. I just like spiritual community and things. Um, I would just kind of tend to have a paranoia around men and a paranoia that they just immediately have bad intentions and that I'm not safe around them. When the truth is that, some of these men, and I'm not saying that they're all perfect, nor, I'm a beautiful young woman, so I can see that, a lot of men also have a lot of work to do around their ability to show up in respect. So there's just a lot of like nuance there. But, when I could step away from that fear and that paranoia that just existed because of my programming instead of like any evidence of that man had given to me, especially if they're like older, like my father's age, you know, I realized that I actually have a lot of opportunity to like be in relationship with them in a way that's like, I'm like your daughter, or I'm like your granddaughter, or I'm like your niece, and we have those respectful boundaries naturally. And like when I can step away from that fear and just like see the human in front of me and to feel into what kind of relationship do I want to have with them, like then I actually open myself up to the opportunity to have a beautiful kin like familial like relationship with this man and just be a daughter or to be a niece and to receive his wisdom or to receive whatever support and nourishment that his presence and his life experience has to offer me. And so I set myself up to have a real, authentic relationship that's not due to objectification or to feeling sexualized. And I also feel like this is a really sad result of being a woman and for being objectified and sexualized for a really long time. And unfortunately, I feel that having these kinds of relationships with men is rare because it takes a lot of consciousness on both of our parts, but especially the man's part, to be able to see us in respect and like to be able to see a young girl and like a young beautiful woman in her like 20s and to see her as a daughter or to see her as a niece and to purify any other thoughts, any other perspective that they might be having, because that definitely happens too. And so I believe that there's space. There's space for nuance. There's space for different kinds of relationships between men and women. And ultimately, we need each other. We're complementary to one another. And obviously, there is a lot of disconnection and dissonance in the world right now. And as we see an inherent disregard for the sanctity of life, and as we have been seeing with kind of like the goddess movement and this awakening of feminine power, we need strong women. We need, as women, it seems, or the world, everyone would benefit from us remembering our power and awakening feminine leadership and awakening the feminine principle again and remembering our own sanctity and remembering our own power first. But we also need strong men, men who are in their power and who can provide the safety, security, stability. And I think too, in taking away gender, awakening the strength and the unique value of the feminine principle and the strength and the unique value of the masculine principle that lives within all of us. I believe that it's absolutely necessary and crucial and powerful for women to awaken in their own feminine power and remember divinity. And I believe that when we get more into the 3D realm, there is actually a lot of harmful messaging around men that are kind of inherently disempowering men's ability to rise and to step into their own power. Because even the most ignorant man, and not even talking about men and talking about patriarchy and the way that men have treated women historically, but I don't believe spiritually we are evil because of the programming that we have been given. I think that we're just ignorant. And that doesn't mean that we don't have a responsibility to decondition ourselves and to understand the harm, the potential for harm and the negative impact we have when we operate from delusional beliefs and we don't open ourselves up to the truth. But I believe that when we speak about men in a way that kind of makes it seem that they are incapable of emotional relating and that they're inherently disrespectful and that they're just something that we can throw in the trash, that is and I mean the vibe of that that is actually not helpful either, because it feels that what we really want is a relationship with the masculine and the feminine that's deeply respectful. And what we really want is for us all to realize the complete, incomprehensible sanctity and reverence of the feminine and of creation and of the earth. And we want strong men who will be able to serve and hold up the feminine and to protect what really needs to be protected, which is beauty and the ability to create sustaining life. And in my own experience, looking at the flaws and the imperfections of the men that I was experiencing and deeming them as just wrong and not enough for me was actually disempowering me from really being in my own space, presence, and power. And what I feel is the antidote to this unhelpful paradigm that men are not enough, that they don't have the ability to emotionally relate to, hold space for women, and provide the safety that we need to be okay. The antidote, I believe, to this is radical self-responsibility on our part, meaning that we do the work that we need to do to be able to feel safe in our own bodies and to know when we are consciously giving our power away. Because it seems that even if we have these ideas about having a lot of difficulties with men, we still end up in relationships and in ways of relating to men that feel deeply unfulfilling to us. And it seems that when we have these ideas that men just are incapable, then we continue to attract relationships that continue to perpetuate that idea. And my question is, what do we need to do to be able to see things clearly for how they are and to have deeply loving, respectful, authentic, and fulfilling relationships with men and the masculine? And I'm speaking as a woman, as a young woman, whom I feel like most of the people listening to this are women around my age, but who knows? I don't know. I feel like this is applicable to everyone of just radical self-responsibility because it goes beyond man and woman here. I think that when we can look beyond the gender, and we can look beyond the anatomy, and look beyond the programming and conditioning and expectations we have towards someone who is male presenting or female presenting, we can step away from that and then remember that we are all energetic beings who are all deeply imperfect and flawed, and that we are all operating out of some paradigm that has been given to us, some more identified with it than others, some more critically thought about those conditioned patterns more than others. But we are also all operating out of the systems that have created our culture and our identities, such as patriarchy and colonialism and white supremacy. And so we are generally all of our psyches are connected to those things. And we are all have traumas, and we all have, and not even just in our own life, but intergenerationally, which is really affected by what race and what class and where we were born and what gender we are and what sexual orientation we are. And we all hold both the masculine and the feminine energies within us, and they manifest themselves in different ways. And we all have different desires and different needs and different hopes and different dreams. So, like that, we're all on an equal playing field. And this understanding has been really monumental for me in terms of relating. Relating in general to anyone, but especially relating to men. Because before having this awareness and having a natural tendency to fawn and people please towards men, which was modeled by all of the women around me growing up, a part of that was motivated by a need to prove myself and to prove my worth, and a need underneath that, a need to survive. And then I would pedestal that person. So I would unconsciously start to think about all of the ways I thought that I was flawed and that I wasn't enough, which is the classic case of moving from unworthiness. And I would just see all the amazing, beautiful parts of this person in front of me and think that they got it all together. And same thing when it has to do with men or a man that I'm attracted to. It's that discernment and that ability to really see the human in front of me started to dissipate, and I started to just connect to all the things that I liked about them. And it's not bad to have things that you like and admire, but when there's not the ability to take things with a grain of salt and to have spaciousness around it, but to have immediate attachment and expectation of who I think that person is, then the risk is that I start to I start to just become deluded and less grounded to the earth, and therefore start to relate to that person in a way that's not truly authentic. It's not truly real. Now, I see that when I put that person on a level playing field by just connecting to the truth that they are a human being as deeply flawed and imperfect as I am, when I look at that man in front of me or that person in front of me, I don't have to mold and manipulate myself to be who they want me to be, or who I perceive that they want me to be. I don't have to think that they need to find me beautiful, they need to find me attractive, because I don't need to prove myself and my worth to them. Because if I can validate myself and I know that I am inherently worthy, I'm inherently worthy of taking up space, and I'm inherently worthy of just being who I am, then I don't need anything from that person standing in front of me. I don't need anything from that man standing in front of me. And if it is a man that I find some attraction to, that I feel I am curious whether there could be a level of romantic intimacy, I am so safe when I remain rooted in my own spine, in my own trunk, because because how I relate to the masculine is that if there's going to be a romantic kind of way of relating to this person, I don't want to be the one that's chasing. I don't want to be the one that is actively pursuing or really going out of my way to get this person to want to like me. What I want from the romantic masculine is to be so seen and valued for my beauty, but not my beauty as faith. I mean, it could be my beauty as faith, of course, but like deep, reverentially seeing the fertility of my feminine energy and feeling attracted to that, and coming to me with an offering out of a desire to get to know me and out of a desire to interact with my feminine energy more. Now, historically, and this has taken a lot of time and deliberation to understand this and to come to this conclusion of how I relate romantically with men. But before, I would give away my energy so much, and I would just give and give and give to a masculine who maybe didn't really see the sanctity of my energy and the purity of my energy. And then I would just give everything to him, and we take what other people give us. I'm not saying that, if he was like really deeply conscious, he could have seen my unworthiness wounds and then closed that off. But and closed off the interaction between him and I, because he could see that I was giving too much, or that I was giving from a place of lack and unworthiness. And in his desire, in his deep consciousness and desire to protect me, he would have ended the interaction or created great boundaries, so that I wouldn't be giving that essence away. But he wasn't at that level of consciousness, and that's okay, because I think that when I'm giving from a place of unworthiness and overgiving and giving everything, and that's really validating to a man. And if he is operating from unconscious worthiness wounds, he's gonna eat that up. He's gonna take that because he's so yearning for the feminine, and he's so yearning for that feminine energy, that if I'm freely giving that to him without him putting in any effort or just giving me like a little bit of validation, he's going to continue to eat that up. And in that instance, when I would give and give and give, and then I wouldn't be receiving back, and I would just give and give and give because I really wanted to prove myself, because I really wanted his validation. And when that energy wasn't being met by me, then I made him the villain. I made him the issue, because I'm like, I'm giving you so much and you're not giving me nearly a crumb of what I'm giving to you. Why? And then I would get mad at him and then think like, he doesn't revere the feminine. He is not as just having these ideas, starting to think like he can't revere me, which maybe had a level of truth. But I would make him bad. I would make him the villain, which then completely disempowered me to take a step back and realize, Faith, you're pouring out when there's no energy coming back in, because from the get-go, the relationship was built on a level of, definitely a level of authenticity, but a level of delusion and emotional attachment, because I wanted to be validated, because I wanted to prove myself, because underneath all of that, I wanted to be saved by the masculine. I feel like this is a really important aspect of this conversation too. Because the title of this podcast says, I've been doing a lot of work healing my inner masculine, healing my relationship with my father, and healing my relationship with the masculine and the father in life in general. And in personally, I feel like culturally and also personally, and if you look historically, we had to be like in the 3D realm saved and delivered by the masculine. Like we needed an external masculine to make sure that we're okay, that we're fed, that we have all of our base needs met. So we needed to fawn and people please and all the things. And we just needed to like survive by finding a husband and by having a physical man with us so that like we would survive in society. Okay. And like I feel that those ideas are still rooted within our collective psyche. And my mom, from the beginning, since the beginning of my life, and from as early as I can remember, she's always saying, I really want you to find the knight in shining armor. She grew up in with not a lot of money, with a lot of dysfunction, and witnessed a lot of things that a young child shouldn't have. And so she prayed for a man to save her. And she met my father, who basically, kind of delivered her from that really hard situation. But ever since I was young, my mom's always telling me, I want you to find someone your knight in shining armor that's going to sweep you off your feet. And if you think about like any Disney movie ever, like, all of this programming around what a man should be and what a woman should be, like culturally in our collective unconscious, there's this message that the masculine is going to save you and deliver you. That ultimately we have to rely on the external masculine to be okay and to feel safe and protected in the world. Kind of the same messages from my father as well. And so I think that this creates, collectively a lot of wounding between the masculine and the feminine, creating this complex where men feel like they have to be the savior and they have to give everything, and they have to be the ultimate provider and protector, and to be the ultimate rock, and to not have any space to feel or to be soft or to disconnect from that need to just be the sword. And it also creates the message that we as women need to be saved and need to be delivered. And I believe that there's room for context here because biologically and historically, men were built and have evolved for a specific way of living, and women were built and evolved to have a specific way of living. And we have evolved to relate to one another when usually, the woman is the one who literally brings life on the earth and bleeds and has a completely different cycle than a man. And the man is usually the one who shows up consistently and steadily the same every single day, doing stronger things, doing things that are more protective. And so like naturally there is this way of relating to one another, and this in no means does not discount or discredit that, nor if you are a cis heterosexual woman and cis heterosexual man and you really want to be a mother and to just be a mother and to raise your children. And, you know, as a man, you feel like your highest calling is to have a really good job and to provide and protect for your family. I think that's beautiful. And, you know, I see that I could also be in that part of life as well. But I think it's more like speaking individually when we aren't connected to our own spiritual sense and conscious sense of wholeness of our masculine and feminine energies, to where a woman feels wounded in her own femininity, maybe didn't receive that protection or receive that feeling safe and secure by her own father. And so she now feels unconsciously, very, very quietly, like we don't see it, but that I need to be saved because like I need to survive, because I need to be safe. And I believe that a man will really provide that for me. And same thing, you know, with a man, that he believes that like being with a woman is going to be his emotional harbor, that she's going to be the one that's going to, you know, be the heart, be his heart, that she's going to be the one that's going to give him all the sustenance that he needs to feel the beauty and to feel the like the goodness and the connection to life. But the truth is that he's going to have to find that within his own self. And if we are both operating out of that place of lack, then we're always going to be wanting something from one another. And we're always going to be feeling like that this person is completing us in a certain way, and therefore we're going to have great emotional attachment to them. And not saying that emotional attachment is bad. However, when there is deep emotional attachment without a level of objectivity and understanding that we're both human beings and we're both responsible for cultivating our own wholeness and to invalidating ourselves and validating ourselves, then we're going to be unconsciously needing more, I think, from this person that, you know, they're, you know, naturally able to give. And therefore, relationships become a bit extractive and maybe manipulative and exploitative. And when there's a lot of emotional attachment, then that means that risks more manipulation and pain, because we're holding on to that other person so tightly, because we might not even, we're not really like loving that other person, we're loving what they can give to us, that we feel that we don't have. And so I believe that it can become a really painful cycle. So I hope this all makes sense, because I'm just spitballing here. And I'm just saying what's coming to mind. So I'm hoping that it's all coming together in a cohesive way. And usually it does. So yeah, now my relationship with men, as I have been healing myself and healing my inner masculine. And I feel like the most powerful lessons for healing my inner masculine has been like, in terms of security and making my way in the world, that's on me. And, you know, I'm no longer looking for a man to deliver me. Although right now, like personally, I have so much. But when we're talking about like money and opportunity and what's that word? Yeah, money and opportunity, I don't have much. And I think like I literally said to my mom a few months ago, I was like, I want a man who's rich. And you know, I'm not saying that if I have a life partner, I mean, I see myself making good money in my life, and I'm not saying that if I have a life partner and I'm like, you know, gonna get married and have a father of my children, like I want safety and security. But I'm 24 years old, and the men that I'm going to be romantically interested in are going to be like young too, and expecting a man to have it all figured out right now, when I'm thinking about him romantically, it's just so much pressure. It's so much pressure to put on him. And it's also been beautiful, this awakening for like allowing space for nuance and for um differentiation in the different roles that the men that I have relationships with play in my life. And I realized like, oh, this man in my spiritual community who's my father's age, he's a father figure. And he maybe I could be receiving some things from him that I wish that I could be receiving from my father. No shade to my father, but like this could be my father figure, or this could be my grandfather figure. And it's so beautiful, like just in this vein, when we have multiple father figures and multiple grandfather figures and grandmothers. And I think it's so beautiful to have this, because we get to receive so much more wisdom and so much more nourishment, it seems, because our biological, mother and father, they do their best, but they can't be our whole village, like they're also flawed and imperfect, and they're not going to be able to give me everything that I need. So maybe there's something that I need from a father figure. I could go and receive that from someone who's just not my blood. And yeah, and like, I just had a conversation with a friend. We met up for the first time, and I was just learning about him. And he's 38, and I'm like, "Oh, you're like my brother. You're like my older brother." Like, and that's beautiful, because it just creates space, and there's like these just natural energetic boundaries. Yeah, and I think like the most beautiful thing now and the most powerful thing is that like because I've been doing so much work around my own masculine, I'm not wanting anything from these men anymore. I'm not expecting them to save me or to pay for me or to have it all together. But now I just like am like a human being and they're a human being, and we relate to one another in a way that's authentic to each of or that's authentic between us. And I've been loving that. And I've been cultivating really beautiful relationships with men, and it feels so good to have like true masculine presences in my life. And I will say that all of the men that are in my life are conscious and spiritually grounded. And so, definitely from the get go, there is this knowing of respect and sanctity and connection. And I don't like I have love and respect for all beings, of course, but I don't feel a desire nor an attraction to um cultivate like a close relationship with an unconscious man. But this goes for like everyone in general. I feel like I can relate to everyone, but if they're going to be like a part of my inner sanctum and have, access to me and like my true energy, these men also are doing their work and are living lives that are true and authentic and are also connected to their emotionality and are aware of feeling and aware of the more nuanced conscious things. So I would like to offer that too. And I will say that as I root more and more into my feminine energy, and I take care of myself. I heal and understand how the polarities are playing inside of me, and also treat myself so exquisitely, treat my body so exquisitely. And I am treating myself how I want a man to treat me. I'm holding myself up with my own inner masculine. And I am truly seeing myself with so much reverence and with so much respect. And so, therefore, all of the relationships that I will naturally and organically allow that feel good and true within my intuitive body, they're also going to be the same, because I'm no longer needing to feed my pain of unworthiness. And I realized that when I was having relationships in my life with men that were not fulfilling and that did not feel honoring or respectful to myself, that was because I was treating myself in the same way. And so if I'm allowing it, then naturally, in terms of treatment towards myself, then naturally I am going to be attracting that to have to be affirmed that yes, exactly, I am not worthy and I am not good enough. But I am happy to say that I now see how untrue that is. And naturally, I'm just loving myself. And not only that, just like treating myself with deep respect and dignity and gentleness and compassion, and naturally feeling secure and protected and provided for. And so now I'm just looking to have real, authentic connections with the external masculine in my life, and not needing to feel validated or to feel affirmed that I'm not enough. So when we do this work, naturally everything that isn't true and isn't aligned with us is going to fall away. And naturally, we're not going to even attract those kinds of relationships anymore because we know exactly what feels good and respectful and honorable because we treat ourselves in that way. And we are the embodiment of reverence towards the feminine. And we easily see and lovingly rescind our energy away from, or not give any energy towards, anything that is not in alignment with deep reverence and respect for the feminine. So that feels true, and it's just my own experience too. So yay, I'm having good relationships with men. I'm not feeling afraid, nor am I fawning or people pleasing anymore. And naturally, I think as a result, I'm not really afraid to express myself anymore. I'm not afraid to share my truth anymore. Nor am I afraid to like not say anything when I am in conversations with unconscious men where it feels like extractive. I've found that the most productive way to get out of that situation without trying or forcing is to just not give anything. And naturally, you just move on. So, yeah, I'm feeling really safe and protected. And it's not because I'm like, I need to protect myself or I'm like, this person is bad. It's just I move towards what resonates and who resonates. And I allow respect and I allow dignity and I allow reverence and I understand with compassion a lack of that, but I also know that I don't want to extend my life force energy towards any being who will not be able to receive and give in a reciprocal way, that will not be able to have a loving and respectful relationship with me or yeah. So yeah, these are some thoughts that I feel like are in alignment with that dream and that vision that I explained and painted for us at the beginning of the podcast. And I hope that some of it rings true, some of it resonates, and just take what feels helpful for you. Yeah, because it really would be great if we could all just work together and to feel strong and secure and beautiful and connected to divinity within our own selves, and to relate to one another authentically, to remember familial relationships, to heal our father and our mother wounds, and ultimately to not be afraid to cultivate our own gifts and talents and unique value, to remember right relationship with the earth and to create life-giving and life-supportive systems, instead of these extractive, exploitative ones that ultimately are not going to give a good future to our children and our grandchildren. So, yeah, I love you. I am proud of us. And thanks for listening.